On this episode, we visit Honolulu, Hawaii. We talk with the executive director of the Hawaii Bicycling League. Then, we talk with an experienced bicyclist about cyclists and traffic. Stay tuned.
We're talking with Chad Taniguchi with the Hawaii Bicycling League. What is the league?
The league is a 39-year-old organization, 501c3, started in 1975. Our mission is to enable more people to bike for health, recreation, and transportation through advocacy, education, and events.
Where are we standing right now?
We're standing in Honolulu on South King Street, from downtown toward the university on my left. And this is a 6-lane one-way street that is coupled with another 5-lane one-way street further toward the mountains. And traffic moving in Honolulu generally goes on King Street. So the Mayor Caldwell, and his staff decided that they wanted to put in a cycle track, and they're in the midst of constructing it now. Should be done in a few weeks, and cyclists will be able to use it.
What's the difference between a cycle track and a bike lane?
A bike lane is not protected. It has a white stripe that defines a space for the cyclist, so that's good. And the cycle track is a little one better. It's also called a protected bike lane, and it's protected by either bollards or, in this case, asphalt curving. In other places, planters, something that's a physical obstruction to cars so that they don't veer into the cycle track.
Then as an advocacy group, when you have the mayor and the planners on your side, what do advocates do?
Well, it's been a long time coming, and when we first talked to the mayor when he got elected in January of 2013, we asked him for help on bicycle lanes. And his answer surprised us. He said, "No, that's not good enough. I want protected bike lanes. I want cycle tracks," because he had been to Copenhagen and Amsterdam, and he had seen how many cyclists are willing to bike in those conditions. So we supported him and actually helped him develop those ideas. Initially, it was going to be on the right side of the road, which has problems because buses stop on the right, and then you'd have to move the bus pads. And it was only going to be one lane. So through talking with his staff and getting other advocates involved, we told him that a two-way bike lane on the left side of the street is acceptable. It's done in other cities, and you'd have the additional benefit of two-way bike traffic. And so they agreed with that, and that's why they're building it now. We had a role in going to the neighborhood board meetings where this idea was presented, and making sure that there were enough people in the audience who were supportive of the cycle track. And we got our members who live in the area to go to those meetings. We also right now are doing education, because being a new thing, it's the first in Hawaii. People are confused about it, afraid of it. Many people think that it's going to cause more crashes. And so we have 4 classes set up in the next 3 weeks for pedestrians, drivers, and cyclists to teach them how to use the cycle track. And there's a public discussion about it in the media. We're participating in that, and we're encouraging people to write letters so that people know that this is a best practice actually, and that it reduces crashes for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. I mean, that's the evidence we have from New York City and other places that have done cycle tracks. So we still have a role to keep this idea in a positive light, to see that it actually goes on. And it's billed as a pilot project. mainly I think to get people to recognize that, okay, we're going to try it, and of course if it doesn't work, we're going to remove it. And we're confident that it's going to work. So we're doing a lot to support it. Right now, we're having an online petition as a thank you to the mayor for doing this and encouraging him to continue doing the great work. So there's a lot of things. There's a community about 3 or 4 miles down the road called Kalihi, and it's a poor section of Honolulu. A lot of public housing in that area. They want to convert from 2-lane each way, which is 4 lanes altogether, on Kamehameha, the 4th road. They want to convert to a 3-lane configuration, the middle lane being a turning lane, and then put 2 bike lanes on either side. And the support for this is tremendous. It's the 3 schools in the area, the district park, and the Tenants Association of the Public Housing Project. So there's strong community desire to have this there. And so we're helping with petitions, helping organize a rally this coming Friday, just to demonstrate to the residents of the city and to the administration that this is something that the grassroots want. And when the grassroots speak, then that should be given great weight.
And when you have policies, good policy, mayor and the planners support, and you get public support, how about the implementation? The things always get done quite the way you expect them to.
Well, this one is a good example. I think it's turning out okay, but the mayor wanted to get it done quickly and wanted to get it done inexpensively. So he tasked the city departments to do it in-house. So the in-house design and in-house putting the berms and paint and bollards, which we think is a really good thing. They did have some problems getting the berms to stay in place rather than crumble, and I think they kind of figured it out now. So that is one example. But also we have a Oahu bike plan that's been accepted by the city as the way to make Honolulu bike friendly. And actually in our charter in 2008, we got passed a charter amendment that says it shall be a priority of the city to make the city bike and pedestrian friendly. And we also got the Complete Streets Ordinance passed 2 years ago that says whenever you construct or repair a street, you have to consider the needs of pedestrians and bicyclists. And on that level, we have the desire of the mayor to do that, but because the Department of Design and Construction main responsibility is to design and construct as many road miles as possible, and which is a good thing. The roads are very poorly kept, so repaving is needed. But that's not well coordinated with the Department of Transportation Services, which is the one that oversees the bike plan. So we've had a role even when designs have been done and didn't have bike lanes in. We've insisted that they put the bike lanes in. The argument has been sometimes, well, we're so far down the road already, the construction is going to start. But we've been able to persuade with getting large numbers of people out, and also because the mayor's administration knows that that's the law and they should do it. So in Wailai Avenue in Kaimuki, about 4 miles up the road, there's now bike lanes where they weren't going to be. On Baratania Street behind us, the other one-way street, they agreed to put in bike lanes for a 1.7 mile stretch. There's another one in Kaimuki on 10th Avenue where there wasn't enough room for bike lanes on both ways, but we persuaded them at least put it one way on the uphill way. So it's not perfect, but this mayor is tremendous and his vision is tremendous. And I don't think it's for the lack of a desire. It's just sometimes practices continue on even though the policy changes. So that's part of what we're doing, trying to be supportive but also hold their feet to the fire so that they actually do what they're supposed to do and do it when the time is right. All cities that have great bike infrastructure know that the cheapest way to do it is when repaving is going to occur. Then all you have to do primarily is the striping and maybe the signaling. So we don't want them to lose the opportunity because the mayor has done more repaving and fixing up streets than any other mayor. He and his administration did 390 miles last year, the first time that's ever been done. They're on track to do 300 miles this year, and their goal is 1,500 miles in 5 years. So while these are being done, we don't want that opportunity to be lost and then have to wait another 10 years before repaving comes around again to put in the bike lanes and cycle tracks and even sharrows, because it's going to be so much more expensive to do after the fact.
You're working hard on getting the infrastructure in place. How about the education side of things? What do you do in the way of educating the public? I mean, you mentioned education about the cycle track, but other than that, what are you doing?
We have a 25-year-old program called Bike Ed, bike education in the schools. Oahu has 120 elementary schools, and we reach 90 of them every year, teaching fourth graders how to bike. And this program is a 5-day-a-week program. The students get 4 to 5 hours of us for that whole week, and they learn the rules, they learn how to stop, start, turn, signal, and we culminate that with going out and riding on the street. So that's one of the unique things about this program, and it's been going on for 25 years. In addition to that, we've been reaching out to intermediate schools and high schools more on an ad hoc basis, but we see that there's much more cycling going on now in the intermediate and high schools, and we'd like to develop a program there. Adults, we teach adults to ride using the League of American Bicyclists principles, and even in fact this week we're having 14 league cycling instructors trained, and that's to get people to recognize that cycling on the road where there is no bike lane is possible to do safely, and besides getting bicyclists to realize that and how to do it safely, 95% of all drivers don't know that bicycles may use the full lane, and so they may honk or get close or yell or swear at cyclists doing that. And we're working with the Honolulu Police Department so that all their officers know it and will be our friend on the road and let drivers know that this is okay. In fact, one of the things that we do is if a driver is dangerous to a cyclist, when a cyclist is using the full lane, we're training our members to immediately zero in on the license plate, commit that to memory, as well as the color, make, model of the car, and identify the driver if they can. And then we encourage them to call HPD when they get to a place where they can wait for 15 minutes. So they might get to work and call HPD and say, on King Street at the Keimoku intersection this morning when I was commuting, this driver honked his horn loudly at me, came really close and sped by. And please call the driver and let him know or her know that bicyclists may use the full lane. and that next time when you see a bicyclist, just wait patiently and pass on the left rather than getting mad. And so, that's a program that is successful. When a person in authority like the police tells a driver that that's legal and you shouldn't do that again, it does have a positive effect. We've had people say, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. I thought cyclists had to ride on the right or on the sidewalk and that the street was for cars. So when police officers tell that, they listen. And it's a one-by-one kind of education, but that's coupled with, we have PSAs to do that, and every one of our classes, we talk about that. And speaking of classes, we have two kinds. We teach cyclists to cycle, and we teach drivers to drive and be careful around pedestrians and cyclists. And we reach about 1,000 people a year of drivers. We've reached people who've got ticketed and have to take a course on safe driving. We reach bus drivers. There's a great story about Roberts, Hawaii. If you ever visit Hawaii and you're going to go touring, there's a good likelihood you're going to be riding a Roberts bus because they're the biggest private transportation provider. And the story is that from 2007 to 2010, in 5 years, once a year, they had killed one pedestrian or one cyclist. And in 2010, we said, enough of that. Our members are really afraid of you, Roberts. Please let us get involved with your training program and your safety people. We think there's a better way for you to teach your drivers. And they, to their credit, they were really welcoming to us. We took their trainers on King Street with 6 lanes, and after some instruction, we told them, okay, merge from the right lane to the extreme left lane, 6 lanes over. And of course, we led them and we were behind them, but that experience in itself got them to realize that cyclists are really vulnerable, and the bigger cars and buses really have a duty to watch out for them. So they actually contributed to a training video, which is on our website, hbl.org. It's also on their website, and they made it available to other trucking and bus companies. So the good news is that 2011, 12, 13, and 14 so far, there have been 0 fatalities of pedestrians or cyclists by Roberts. So that's a dramatic turnaround from 1 a year for the 5 previous years to none for the last 4 years. And they're believers. I went for a retraining of them about 4 months ago, and instead of doing it, I said, well, what are the principles that you teach drivers so that they won't hit pedestrians and cyclists? And they hit them all on the head with passion. And basically they said, it's our responsibility to watch out for pedestrians and cyclists. And if we're going to make a turn and we don't see that pedestrian or cyclist that we saw prior to the turn, we don't make the turn. We wait till we identify where that person is, could be in our blind spot, and only when we know the person is now safe do we make the turn. The other one is, if we're going to stop and we see a cyclist, we're going to wait till that cyclist goes ahead of our stop and goes past our stop before we make the turn. Because now they know that cyclists are going 10 to 20 miles an hour, and even if you have 100 feet or 200 feet in front of them, by the time you actually slow down and stop, the cyclist will be right on your tail anyway. So they've internalized those principles, and they spread it among their drivers. And I know it's good for their reputation, I know it's good for their bottom line, and it's good for everybody else, Other pedestrians and cyclists are safe. So that's the kind of education we've been doing. We think the cycle track is going to get more people to bike. You protect it except for the intersections and driveways. And the main principle drivers have to follow in that case is look out for the pedestrians and cyclists and don't turn if there's some potential for danger. People are so rushing around and concerned about their minute or their 30 seconds, but really this is a public thoroughfare, it's public property, and our saying is everyone has a right to use this road safely, whether they're pedestrian, cyclist, or any kind of road user, legal road user. In fact, that's a principle that Kamehameha I declared 217 years ago when he first became king. The law of the splintered paddle that says everyone has the right, young and old, men and women, to use the roads safely. So we're also trying to get buy-in because it's such an old law that has roots in Hawaiian history, getting people to buy in and say, this is not something new or strange, this is the way it should be. And you know, Honolulu, I know you've been to many cities around the world, we think is the best place in the world to live. It's got definitely the greatest climate. Even though it rained yesterday, we could still bike in the rain, and we can bike every day of the year pretty much. So if we had more people being active, walking, biking, taking mass transit, carpooling, and driving individual vehicles, yes, less. This would be a super city in which to live.
We're talking with Dale Hoffman. How long have you been a bicycle rider?
Since I was a kid, like most people, but I stopped driving a car 22 years ago, so every place I've gone, I've either gone by bicycle or foot or bus. 22 years.
And what sort of major bicycling trips have you done in that time?
I've crossed the United States 6 times by bicycle, and I've done a bunch of tours that I've taken across the United States, and I was one of the people that helped found Hawaii Bicycling League over here, so I've just been kind of an example for myself to other people that you live your life in a community by bicycling.
So here in Honolulu, what sort of things do you see bicyclists doing that they really shouldn't be?
Well, bicyclists bicycles by law are considered a vehicle, so they have the same rights and you have to follow the same rules as all vehicles, and they don't do that. Probably 50% of them are riding on the sidewalk and scaring the heck out of all the pedestrians, and a lot of people are afraid to ride their bikes now on the streets with cars, and there are more cars and people aren't paying attention as much with all their electronic devices. So I try to be an example of an older guy that can get every place I need to go by bicycling, and I think that really promotes community too.
And what sort of problems does it create for pedestrians when bicyclists are intimidated by cars and move onto the sidewalks?
Well, if they follow the law, which is called you're not supposed to ride a bike in a sidewalk in a business district, or if you're riding outside of the business district, you need to go about 5 or maybe a maximum 10 miles an hour. Most people aren't paying attention to those rules, and so unfortunately most people that are pedestrians watch a bicycle's coming right at them, somebody that weighs 150 pounds and with a 50-pound bicycle, and they're afraid that they might get hit by one, and you could kill an old person like that. So I promote people riding with cars on the street and not on sidewalks. And we have about 50% of almost all the bicyclists in the city of Honolulu ride on the sidewalks because they're afraid to be on the streets with cars.
What can be done to make the streets more inviting for cyclists so they aren't scared away?
Yeah, that's a great question. We can slow the cars down. if you go to Switzerland, for example, and most places in Europe, the speed limit is 18 miles an hour. So if you're riding a bicycle in Switzerland and a car passes you just a few feet away, they're going hardly any faster than you are, and that's what we need to do. We need to slow the traffic down. That would get more people riding bicycles on the road.
As Honolulu gets more bicycle lanes and the new cycle track opens up, how are facilities like that going to help the situation?
It will help, as in every country and city in the world, that the more bicyclists that there are, the more the people that are driving cars start including the bicyclists as part of the whole traffic situation. Right now in Honolulu, I'd say probably a maximum 1% of all the things on the street are bicycles. And if you get up to like Portland at 7 or 8%, then all of a sudden it becomes a part of the whole traffic situation. It slows people down. Not the bicyclists slow them down, but everybody just starts slowing down as they start including the bicyclists.
How will we know when we've made progress? What are you looking for that says we've been successful?
Well, the street right over here, King Street, is now going to have a one lane exclusively for bicycles, and it'll be separated with a little berm and parked cars, so that would get more bicyclists on the road. This may not fit with what we're talking about, but as a teacher of effective cycling for many years, I tell people that the safest way to ride with cars is to ride with the cars, ride in the lane with cars. And the law says if you're a bicyclist, you can take a whole lane if the lane isn't wide enough for both a bicycle and a car to be in at the same time. And so I don't know how we're kind of falling backwards regarding getting more bicyclists on the lanes. As more bicyclists start riding in Honolulu, they're riding on the sidewalks. So I don't know really what the answer is, how we can get more bicyclists. But the more facilities that we provide for bicyclists to make them feel safe on the roadways with cars, the more bicyclists that will be out there.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.